Namaste and welcome to another episode of Tech Storytelling. This tech story is for the business leaders and by the business leaders. And today I have an amazing guest with me. He is Brett Fraser. Brett is the Chief Operating Officer with Jolt Advantage Group. So Brett, welcome to this storytelling and warm welcome to this program.
Thank you very much, Madonna. It's absolutely my pleasure. Looking forward to getting into it. Always happy to share a story.
All right, that's great. I'm super excited to talk to you, Brett. So before we get started, let us little bit know about the Jolt Advantage Group and your role as COO, so that at least the audiences should get a little bit of with whom they are speaking today.
Of course. As Madonna mentioned, I'm COO for Jolt Advantage Group. And in that role, I'm to innovate inside operations, where all global operations report up to me. At the same time, focus on strategy for corporate growth. How do we expand Jolt's services offering, product offering, as well as capabilities internally? And at the same time, my role is to evangelize, share the lessons learned, share the successes, celebrate those successes, and then, of course, fix the issues that come along with those successes. So that's my role. That's where I focus at Jolt. And it's been a long time getting here, but I'm here now.
All right, all right, that's lovely. So while I was exploring your LinkedIn profile, some of the interesting thing I got from there. So you are known for a no-nonsense, simple human approach is what you are known for. I'm driven to exceed expectation and drive result. Challenges drive me and complex businesses will interest me.
Yes.
So, Brett, can you tell a little bit more about this one? Why you are known for this one?
Absolutely. I was raised an only child, no brothers and sisters. That means I get bored quickly. So when challenges were pushed in front of me, I couldn't get enough. I would nibble at the fringe and then take a deep bite because I craved the knowledge of how do I surpass this challenge? How do I rise to the top of that hill? How do I fix the problem? How do I see that problem as an opportunity for advancement or improvement? So a lot of what I mean by when I say no nonsense approach is you don't have to always throw in the adjectives necessary or big gigantic words. If it's broken, just fix it. You don't have to bring in an army to decide by council. You can just plain ask for help and hopefully someone steps in and helps. And at the same time, there's other problems always going on out there. There's challenges constantly. Some people say, just like with a painter's mind, my picture's done, but a painter's never finished. They're always touching up years and
Yeah,
years later.
yeah.
So when someone asks for help, you can help them. You don't have to wait to ask, or you don't have to wait to be asked. You can always put yourself out there, as most people know. So from that no nonsense approach, there's not a lot of bells and whistles or fringe extra that you have to jump through. Here in the States, there isn't the red tape or bureaucracy. Just tell me what's needed. And more than likely, I'll facilitate change or help improve. Now, when there's been large problems, oftentimes I'm the third or fourth level that they bring in. Someone
Yes.
tried, it didn't work. Others came in, and sometimes they bring in consultants. Not saying consultants are a bad thing, but oftentimes it takes a fresh mind with no nonsense. Just what's the problem? What have you done so far? Here's what I recommend we do. And I'd say 8 times out of 10, it works, but it's not because I'm new on the block. I've seen these problems myself. I've watched the industry evolve over the past 20 years. And
Mhm.
so I've learned those lessons. And I now position myself in my role for my clients at Jolt to say, I've learned those lessons. I was an adopter of RPA. I've built business up to this point, and I can help you do the same. All it takes is the ability to help. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm looking
All right, this is great, great to know about. So I mean, you are walking into telecom, service support, and a lot of other business domain. And what I experience a lot of transformational change happening into these domains, and especially with the rapid adoption of the technology. And I'm sure that you might have experienced all these changes with rapid adoption of technology or maybe the consumer behavior. So how this change might have changed your thought process, the mindset, and how this might have affect your overall or maybe your customer business strategy.
Yes, it has changed quite a bit over the past 10 years alone. So, a president of an extremely large bank in the Nordics came to me roughly 7 years ago
Mhm.
and asked me when was the last time I went into a bank. And I was living in Lower Manhattan at that time. So, I went in 6 months ago, 6 months prior, when I first moved there to open up a bank account because I needed something with my local address. So he said, wonderful. Think back. How frequently did your parents go into the bank? Hmm. My father was a civil servant worker, meaning he worked for the federal government, and he went in monthly because his check would be cashed and he would need money for the family and he would do it monthly. And he asked, well, when do you think your grandparents went into the bank? And I remembered fondly because if I was a good boy after coming out of the bank to go get groceries, I'd get a lifesaver, a little bit of candy. And I thought that was a good thing. They went in weekly. And he said, okay, if your grandparents went in weekly, your parents went in monthly, and you went in 6 months ago, your grandchildren won't even have banks to go into, will they?
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right, because the evolution of generations are making that unneeded. And he said, yeah, so we need your help to move banking mobilely. We're going to capture the market share. We're shutting down all of our brick and mortar banks. I thought, how are you going to do that? Then people won't need to go into the bank. So buying trends have changed. The way technology has been consumed has totally been flipped upside down. You no
Oh, yeah.
longer go into something. My grandchildren will be going, ooh, gross, you went into a bank? Yuck. Why didn't you use whatever app is popular for it at the time, right? So here we are now with clients coming to us saying, we know they need the technology. Maybe we know how to do it, or we have no clue how to do it. So, in both instances, it's really understanding that pain, knowing your audience, right? Just like solving a problem. The problem is they need it. They can desperately benefit from the impact robotic process automation or machine learning or artificial intelligence can provide, but they don't know where to start. And I always tell the clients the hardest part about adopting digital technology or transformative technology is just plain getting started. With them coming to me, they've already started the thought process necessary to begin the adoption. So, what we do with RPA is kind of educate them a little bit of here's what you could expect. And for me, here's what could go wrong as long as you plan the strategy appropriately, just like any technology. What Jolt offers is an RPA assessment to come in. There's multiple flavors. There's a tiny little thing where we can find 5 candidates that'll be largely impactful, or we can analyze an entire business unit or enterprise and say, here's your top candidates. There's a company out of Qatar, a very large logistics provider that we scoped to save 212,000 man hours per month.
Mhm.
Wow, if they adopted it. So luckily they are on that path to adoption and they'll see very large time savings. But there's multiple things outside of time. In technology adoption, I've noticed that many of us kind of hold on to number of man hours saved. But what about human error reduced? Because we are only human, we're fallible, we make mistakes. I do, and it's okay to do that. At the same time, if I'm able to take a worker who's able to work 8 hours a day and give a technology that works 24 hours a day, that's scalable. That's building scale, not time savings. And in the event that I'm able to say a human can do one thing at a time, but machines can do multiple things at once at an astronomical scale, I'm building an efficiency. So it's not just time savings. And it's getting their mindset on that path of it's much more than just putting in a technology that could supplement human action or save time. you're truly transforming the way you think of business and perform operations.
Yeah, yeah, great. So while in having conversation, you talk about the larger project you help your customer to transform, and you talk about technology adoption or maybe technology transformation. So what is the number one barrier or maybe resistance you might have observed or noticed, and what kind of a strategy you follow to overcome those challenges?
So number one's always budget, but I'm going to put that to the wayside, right? Everyone has that issue. Whether software, hardware, or just plain buying groceries. There's always a budget concern.
Yeah.
But from a technical perspective, it's that understanding the evolution.
Mhm.
For instance, you'll have an organization that has an Oracle migration need. They see it as data. There's technologies that see, say, do, and learn. So the data, what they can see and what they know, is one thing. But they want to get the data from one point to another point, a migration, taking
Yeah.
from old legacy software, moving it to new, adding new modernization factors, and really doing the legwork necessary to understand what's the benefit of us doing it. But the CIO says we have to. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. That proper planning prevents a large amount of issues and problems in the future. So, the planning for that transformation is the biggest hurdle and issue because not everybody comes to the table. And usually, there's not a leader that steps in and says, okay, I need your input, your input, your input, your input, and I'll make a decision that I'll feed up to the CIO so everyone's informed and everybody's part of the solution. Usually it's siloed. That's the biggest difficulty is siloed decision making within an enterprise level. When finance says, well, we've got the budget and we know exactly how many dollars are allocated to it. Okay, we'll leave that budget concern over there. The CIO says, it's my data, it's my information, it's my strategy, and this is where we're going to go get me a rock, if you've
Yeah.
heard that analogy before. And the technologists, the IT team are like, yeah, but what we have right now works just fine. Please don't change it. So sometimes I get to introduce clients to clients. And I
Oh,
say, person who works inside this client, this is someone else who works inside this client. Maybe you guys should talk because there's a better way to do things. Once we've got that communication out of the way, once we've built that internal team, it takes a village to raise an idiot. So we try to get those clients that have that non-village mentality to come together and say, look, we've got a common goal. We've got common technologies. We're the experts of the tech. You know exactly how you run your business. Let's work together. So that's the biggest hurdle.
okay, great. So I heard you're talking about data
Hmm.
points, and I mean nowadays I can see a lot of shift happening into the business model based on the data. And right, data is the new oil. Somebody said data is the crude oil. So
Yeah.
so that's correct. So what's your strategy about driving the data-driven business transformation? I mean, have you experienced or what essentially how you're driving?
Yes. I always think of data as the new gold. It's great to have data there, but use it as a hedge with other investments.
Hmm.
So you'll remember the days when it was just reporting,
Yeah.
and of course the data was everywhere. Nobody knew what it was, but this guy named Matt in IT had an amazing report. Thank you so much. And it was really gathering, I'll say, knowledge at that point. We weren't focused on the data. What did the report tell us? That must be right because we didn't know. We just assumed it was right. And then in the 90s, we started diving into data and big data came about. Ooh, it must be good because it's big. No, there was just a whole lot of it and we had no idea what we were doing with it. And then algorithms and machine learning came
Yeah.
along to advance our human understanding. So that way, instead of saying we've got big data, now we can say we have analysis of that data to show us projections, predictions, and prescriptions. Not so much predicting the future, but seeing trends and leveraging those trends and seeing where upswings, peaks, valleys, and data clumps kind of get us in the weeds. But now we're at the point to where we can provide the statistical, accurate, nth degree answer. And then what? So with data, data is good and it'll always be there. And we're generating points of data astronomically at levels that we've never seen before in human times. But with big data comes big responsibility. If you know where the data is and you know what data you need to pull and you know when your analysis will be shared and you know the answer, now you take action. This is where RPA can complement data in that with technologies that see, say, do, and learn, now that we've said, now that we've learned, well, what are we going to do? So oftentimes I have clients that say, but the report says this. Oh, okay, fair enough. But what do you do next? If the data says the answer is 42 and it's greater than 40 and 40 is your decision point, what actions do you take? Do you escalate? Do you notify? Do you inform? Do you take action? Do you copy paste? What do you do? So this is where we can take it to that next level. It used to be give the file folder to the executive who opened it and read the piece of paper, who would then decide. We can use if then and or else logic, string things together, and with the right data, we can make those decisions with machines. But we want to keep the human in the loop. It is appropriate to stop the process and say, hold on, automation, get a human to look over this. Give the human the analysis, give the human the decision point and the ratio of probability towards correctness. Let them put their thumbprint on it, scan their eye scan, type in their password, so that way they're part of that process. And also it's auditable and trackable and assigned to an entity, a person at that point.
Yeah, this is interesting. So my next, question. This is very specific to COO strategy.
Mhm.
So nowadays there are a lot of transformation going on, and in the focus to take all the measures to cut down the OPEX using
Mhm.
all this set of technologies. Uh,
Yes.
shift the shift from OPEX to CAPEX by the cloud or maybe the SaaS driven softwares. So what's your view on this? I mean, are you also experiencing the same kind of experience which I'm talking today?
Worldwide across all horizontals and verticals.
Mhm.
In sales, they'll tell you scared money does not make any money. So
Mhm.
investments are required at this point. If you want to reduce OPEX or transition it to CAPEX, you can't hire less expensive workers. That's not a model anymore. I don't see nearshore, offshore, or onshore models. It's different. Now it's a global economy. It's global workers.
Mm.
Your operations, if you're at the level with your 24/7 operating model, you've got to streamline everything you're doing from a finance perspective. In my instance, that means working extremely closely with the CFO and squeezing as much blood out of every stone possible. But that's old school methodology. There's no more file folders. Nobody has a Rolodex. It's technologically advanced. As a result, I have to stay on top of things. So from a COO's perspective, the very first thing I do every single morning at 5 a.m. my time is I read. What's the latest? What did I miss last night? What research is taking place? Where is AI going? Where is the race between nations in data, RPA, see, say, do, and learn tech? Who's at the forefront? Which companies should I pay attention to? Who should I be partnering with? Those types of ideas pop up. Now, in order to leverage technology in an appropriate manner to advance my company, because remember, just like that Nordic bank, if they didn't take that leap, their competition would. And I would help their competition too. But the thing is, if you as a COO are not taking on advancements in your OpEx strategies, someone else will, and your workers will go there. Someone else will, and your clients will go there because they can get it bigger, better, faster, cheaper. It used to be we could say we wanted it bigger, better, or faster. You could pick two. No, now it's bigger, better, faster, and cheaper. So clients are seeing this, and we've had to evolve with those times as well. In order for us to offer technology, we must leverage technology as adopters. For instance, when I started at Jolt Advantage Group, even prior to my start date, I'd say the third question I asked was, how do you use automation to support your own automation operations? And I waited and I listened, and luckily there was the right answer. If you have an automation provider and they say, we're too busy to automate internally, we're too busy with client projects. No, that's not the right answer. Everyone should be adopting automations. The most adoptive should be those who practice it. For instance, if you have a pool builder come to your home to put in a pool and they don't have a pool at their house, it's not the right guy. They need to know it. They need to understand it. They need to live it. They need to be able to, in my opinion, here's what I went through when I adopted it. Now, once you adopt that technology and make it part of your corporate culture, as well as your technology path, now you're going to begin transitioning. And of course, work closely with your CIO, work closely with your CFO, and make sure they're also on board because they're pushing along as well. We all work together under one corporate umbrella, but we want to make sure everybody's working in the same direction. Does that help?
Yeah, absolutely, it helps. So, in the beginning, you said, in fact, you are an innovation leader through the technology adoption and transformation. You are helping your clients to innovate their processes. So, I would like to focus. I mean, earlier days, the innovation essentially mean that outsourcing, managed services, or shared services. But
Sure.
while having the conversation, you said now it's all global economy. There is no outsourcing. It's all about
Mhm.
the co-sourcing or maybe insourcing. So adopting all this digital workforce, I mean, what's your experience? How you are really turning this outsourcing maybe into insourcing or maybe the near sourcing?
I've learned a lot of lessons over the past 20 years in workforce management, workload balancing, making sure that when you have a 24 by 7 follow the sun model, the work doesn't stop during shift transition from one country to another. The workload could increase based on volume or something like that. Now, with workload management, it's really about understanding the work, not the resource. You can
Mhm.
tailor the stream of work towards your balance, meaning how many people do you have coming on shift next? Crank it up, crank it down. And that needs to be done by shift leaders. So now it's follow the work, not so much staff accordingly by shift. It's not really that way. And also, you mentioned managed services, shared services, insourcing. Use them all. There's benefits to everything. But as a strong, dynamic leader, you've got to know when to say, that's not working, shut it down, put in a different model now, and have dynamic leadership working with you to say, I've got it, no problem, we'll make that change. And change is hard. We all know that. We preach it. There's books written about change, but just do it. Wayne Gretzky in hockey says you're going to regret every shot you don't take. Yogi Berra says you're going to miss every ball you don't
Yeah,
swing at.
yeah, yeah.
So you're going to learn. All chief level, C-level resources learn constantly. And I like to learn from my mistakes sometimes, but luckily my mistakes have been honed over the years,
Oh yeah,
and my skin's gotten a little thicker. I don't take it, oh no, I'm terrible. What did I do? No, learn, keep moving forward.
yeah.
In boxing, George Foreman had the greatest strategy ever. He was big enough, he was strong enough to just plain keep moving forward. Every now and then he would take a shot in the mouth and it hurt, but he kept moving forward. Be
Yeah.
George Foreman in that aspect with your resourcing, with your staffing, and leverage technology everywhere possible to make it even more informative, refined. For instance, I stood up recently a shared services organization in Guadalajara, Mexico. The culture wasn't right for it. Luckily, I started small. And it was easy for me to just say, nope, let's try it again. Let's put in some enforcement technologies, enablement capabilities, and methodology to streamline with a center of excellence guiding it as we build it out. So happy to say in Q2 of this year, shared services is coming back at Jolt for one operational group. If it works, I move it out to three. If
Yeah.
that even works, I move it globally. So try before you buy. It's your workforce. Doesn't matter where they are now. For instance, We have no office spaces that are populated. We've all gone remote thanks to
Yep.
COVID. So, it's a new workforce, and we're going to learn lessons as a result of this. Let's say everybody's vaccinated. Good for us. I hope everyone out there is happy, healthy, and safe. But what are we learning from this? How can we balance that workforce? Will it be remote source now? Onshore, remote shore? That'll be interesting, right? So that's kind of where my mind's focused. Use every tool available to you. Use everything you've learned. Reach out to your counterparts, your coworkers, and ask them what they think. What did they do? That's the easiest thing for me, is just making sure there's a plan, sticking to it, and trying over and over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. So good to know that. In fact, learning is the key element for everybody. And even being a COO, you woke up at 5 a.m. in the morning and you catch up with what trend into the industry. And I believe a lot of CEO must be they will watch this one, and it's a key element for all of them. Great. So again, I have another question from CEO strategy perspective. I think we are running out of the time. I'll take another 2 minutes of your time. So uh, how do you, I mean, this is more about the budget. How do you balance the investment in your existing operation that generate revenue versus the investment in the disruption that may not have the ROI sometime soon in the future?
Mhm.
Because you are an innovation leader, right?
Yeah. I'm curious too. I'm curious to constantly innovate. So, really, caution and care needs to be put in place in order to, just because I can adopt it doesn't mean I should. I'm very fortunate. Over the past years, I've been able to identify resources where they're extremely talented at one aspect, they're extremely talented at another.
Mhm.
And as I've moved from company to company, I've brought maybe one or two people over. Jolt Advantage Group's the only place where I've called in everyone and said, all right, we're getting the band back together. We need that strong core. So that's my dog. I
Yeah.
can make the decisions if necessary, but if I'm cautious and careful, and if I position myself as the one who listens, and I let these talents that have cut their teeth on their own lessons learned, that understand the technologies to a level that I don't, that I never will, can't comprehend it. They attack it from different angles and they see things differently than I would. And if I get those 5 leaders of mine and say, how would you attack this together? They generate ideas, they ideate on the positive factors. Luckily, they also know, being technologists, don't just follow the happy path.
Yeah.
Tell me what could go wrong. And so from that, we can make informed decisions. Now, of course, I will set aside budget for the interesting. What could we do if this were here? That just because you can
Mhm.
doesn't mean you should. Well, what if we just try? So try small, set aside the budget necessary to play. It was interesting. There was a study done on risk versus reward. Humans see challenge as a better reward than monetary gain, because monetary gain is usually small and you spend it immediately, unfortunately for some. But challenge makes people rise to the occasion because they need to squash it, just like me. So if I reward them with hard work, which of course they just take for granted, that's what they do, but give them challenges that are interesting to them, they take it. And then, of course, they breed that culture inside their own operations teams, and their resources are then feeding that information up. And it just becomes cyclical, to where now I have a multiplied resource pool that also is benefiting from that challenge. And for us, it's really just OPEX planning.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great to know that. So my last, I mean, I'm seeking advice. I mean, what would be your advice to other business leaders or maybe the COO who are just kick-starting their digital transformation journey?
Embrace it. um, there's a mentor of mine that worked at Genworth Corporation, and he said, as COO, it's very important to make no change. Listen, come in and ask questions. How would you do this? What would you do? What did you see when you first identified this as an issue? There's no glorious day in operations where they say, "Hey, Brett, everything's going smooth, no problem. You're not needed. Go sit in the corner and be pretty." That day has never happened. It's always everything's on fire. So stay calm. It's always going to be on fire. Embrace the flame. And then at the same time, ask questions. Decisions are yours to be made. That's why you're there. You understand strategy. You know where you're driving the ship. You understand your area of expertise. So don't be so quick to decide and say, this is what I did over here and it's going to work perfectly right here, because it doesn't. There's no standard clients. There's no standard companies. There's no standard role. If you were COO or assistant to or SVP previously, it's not the same. Every day is going to be a new challenge. That's why I read constantly. That's why I'm always asking questions. That should never stop. But heads up, that's what we're expected to do. Make your decisions where you need to, but be informed. Don't be emotional with your decision making. Let data guide you, and listen to your resources above you, around you, and below you. They've typically got insight that you can benefit from.
Okay, great. So it was really interesting, insightful conversation with you, Brett. And thank you very much for taking up the time, and wish you all the best. Wish you all the
Thank you,
best.
sir.
So
Likewise.
yeah, great. So guys, you are talking to Brett Fraser. He's the Chief Operating Officer from Jolt Advantage Group. Uh, Brett is available on LinkedIn. You may follow him. You may connect with him for having such a nice conversation, and you can extend your thought. Thanks a lot for watching, and it was really wonderful talking to you, Brett.
Thank you, sir. Likewise, Madam.